The crystal wine glass felt heavier than it should have, not because of the vintage Bordeaux inside, but because I'd just watched my son-in-law slip something into it when he thought I wasn't looking. The estate's grand dining room was full of laughter, toasts, and congratulations for my retirement from the federal bench. But all I could think about was my father's last words to me 40 years ago. Robert, the most dangerous people are the ones who smile while they sharp the knife. Michael was smiling. He'd been smiling all evening, and I'd been waiting for this moment for 6 months. I wasn't supposed to see it. The vial was small, probably no larger than my thumb, and he palmed it with the practiced ease of someone who'd done this before. We were in the library at that point, my private sanctuary lined with legal volumes and case histories spanning 4 decades on the bench. Michael had volunteered to bring me a fresh glass of the 1982 Margaux I'd been saving for this occasion. "You deserve the best tonight, Robert," he'd said, that winning smile plastered across his face. The same smile that convinced my daughter Sarah to marry him 3 years ago. The same smile that made everyone at the country club think he was some kind of financial genius. But I'd seen the credit card statements, the gambling debts, the late-night phone calls he thought nobody heard. You don't spend 40 years as a federal judge without learning how to read people. And Michael was an open book written in desperation and greed. I accepted the glass from him with steady hands, thanked him warmly, and made a show of being distracted by my former clerk's story about a recent Supreme Court decision. Michael relaxed immediately. He thought I was just another doddering old man, too caught up in legal theory to notice the real world closing in around me. That was his first mistake. His second was underestimating what a federal judge does with his resources when he suspects his family is in danger. The dinner party had been my idea. 50 guests, including colleagues from the bench, attorneys I'd respected over the years, and my family. The occasion was ostensibly to celebrate my retirement, but the real announcement was something else entirely. I was putting my $180 million estate into an irrevocable trust. Sarah would be the primary beneficiary, with provisions for my 2 grandchildren. Michael, as her spouse, would have no direct access to the principal. I'd planned to announce this after dessert. I'd hired 3 different private investigators over the past 6 months. The first one came back with gambling debts totaling $3.2 million, mostly to offshore accounts and some very unsavory people in Atlantic City. The second investigator found the affair, a cocktail waitress named Brittany who thought Michael was single and wealthy. The third investigator found something that made my blood run cold. Text messages between Michael and a man named Dr. Raymond Pierce, a physician who'd lost his medical license 5 years ago for prescribing unnecessary medications to elderly patients. The texts were coded, but I'd prosecuted enough criminal conspiracies to read between the lines. The old man's stubborn. Needs a medical episode. Make it look natural. You'll get your cut. I'd immediately contacted someone I trusted, Marcus Webb, a former FBI agent who'd testified in my courtroom more times than I could count. He'd retired 2 years ago, but still had connections. Within a week, he had a full profile on Dr. Pierce. Suspended license. History of working with people who wanted certain problems to go away naturally. 3 previous cases where wealthy, elderly individuals had died of apparent heart attacks, their estates subsequently fought over by younger relatives. Nothing ever proven, but the pattern was there if you knew how to look. Marcus and I had spent months putting together a plan. We couldn't just go to the police, not with the kind of money and lawyers Michael could hire if he felt threatened. We needed him to commit the act, to catch him red-handed in a way that left no room for doubt. And we needed to protect Sarah, who was completely innocent in all of this. She loved Michael. She believed in him. Finding out he'd tried to murder her father for money would destroy her, but letting him succeed would destroy me. So we planned carefully. The dinner party was the trap. Marcus was among the guests, posing as an old friend from law school. So was Detective Linda Ramirez from the state police, attending as the wife of one of my former clerks. Hidden in the estate were 3 different types of surveillance. Video cameras in the library, dining room, and wine cellar. Audio recording devices in every major room, and Marcus's team positioned around the property. If Michael made his move, We'd have everything documented. What I didn't expect was how brazen he'd be, poisoning me in my own library, surrounded by 50 witnesses in the next room. Either he was supremely confident or absolutely desperate, probably both. I held the poisoned glass carefully as I returned to the dining room. Michael had already taken his seat next to Sarah, his arm draped protectively around her shoulders. She looked radiant tonight, wearing the sapphire necklace I'd given her mother 30 years ago. God, she looked so much like Catherine. Same sharp intelligence in the eyes, same kind heart that assumed the best in people. Catherine had died 8 years ago from breast cancer, and I'd promised her I'd look after Sarah. This wasn't how I'd imagined keeping that promise. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced, raising the poisoned glass, "I want to thank you all for being here tonight. This past year has been a time of reflection for me. 40 years on the bench, thousands of cases, countless decisions that affected people's lives. But standing here now, I realize that the most important judgment I ever made wasn't in a courtroom. It was choosing to trust the people I love." I looked directly at Michael as I said that last part. His smile never wavered, but I saw something flicker in his eyes. Anticipation? He was waiting for me to drink. "Robert's always been too modest," my former colleague, Judge Anderson, interjected. "Some of your rulings changed federal precedent. You should be proud." "I am proud," I said. "Proud of my career, proud of my family, and proud that I've learned to recognize the difference between appearance and reality. That skill has served me well, both in court and in life." Michael shifted in his seat. Sarah squeezed his hand, oblivious to the tension. "Which brings me to an important announcement," I continued. "As many of you know, I've been working with my attorneys to establish a comprehensive estate plan. At 64, with my health excellent and many years ahead of me, God willing, I want to ensure my family's future is secure." I saw Michael lean forward slightly. This was what he'd been waiting for. "However," I paused for effect, "I've decided to make some changes to that plan. Changes I'll be announcing after we've enjoyed the dessert my chef has prepared. But first, a toast. To family, to justice, and to the truth that always reveals itself in the end." I raised the glass to my lips. 50 pairs of eyes watched me. Marcus, from his position near the door, tensed almost imperceptibly. This was the moment, but I didn't drink. Instead, I lowered the glass and smiled. "Actually, I'm being rude, Michael. My boy, you've been so attentive tonight, helping me with the wine service, making sure everyone's glass is full. I think you deserve the honor of the first toast. Here, take this glass. It's from the best bottle in my cellar." I extended the poisoned wine toward him. For the first time all evening, Michael's smile faltered. "Oh, no, Robert, I couldn't. That's your special bottle. You drink it." "I insist," I said firmly, still holding out the glass. "You're family now. What's mine is yours. Isn't that right?" The room had gone quiet. People sensed something was happening but didn't understand what. Sarah looked confused. "Dad, what's going on?" "Your husband has been very generous with me tonight," I said, never taking my eyes off Michael, making sure I had the best wine, the best seat, the best of everything. "I'm simply returning the favor." "Unless there's some reason you don't want this particular glass, Michael?" His face had gone pale. "I just think you should have it. It's your night." "I've had plenty of wine already," I said, "and I'd really like to see you enjoy this one. It's a 1982 Margot, very rare, very valuable. Some might say it's worth dying for." The silence in the room was absolute now. Michael stared at the glass in my hand like it was a coiled snake. "Take it," I repeated, my voice quiet but carrying the same authority I'd used in my courtroom for 4 decades. "Unless you have some reason to refuse." "Robert, what is this about?" Sarah asked, her voice rising with concern. Before I could answer, Marcus stepped forward. "I think I can explain. Mr. Thornhill, would you mind if I took that glass? For testing purposes?" Michael shot to his feet. "Testing? What the hell is going on?" "Marcus Webb, FBI," Marcus said, producing his credentials. "Retired, but still licensed to carry. and Detective Linda Ramirez, State Police. Linda had moved to block the dining room's other exit. We've been conducting an investigation into a conspiracy to commit murder. And Mr. Thornhill, I believe you've just provided us with the key piece of evidence. This is insane, Michael said, but his voice cracked. Sarah, your father's lost his mind. This is some kind of paranoid delusion. Is it? I asked. Then you won't mind if we test this wine? See if it contains anything it shouldn't? Dad, please, Sarah begged, tears in her eyes. What are you saying? I set the glass down carefully on the table and turned to face my daughter. This was the part I dreaded most. Sarah, sweetheart, 6 months ago I discovered that Michael was in serious financial trouble. Millions of dollars in gambling debts. I hired investigators. They found text messages between your husband and a man named Raymond Pierce, a disgraced doctor known for helping people stage natural deaths for wealthy relatives. You're lying, Michael said, but there was no conviction in his words anymore. The text discussed waiting for the right moment, a public event where my death would seem natural, a heart attack, perhaps, or a stroke, brought on by poisoned wine that would be long metabolized before any autopsy was performed. I gestured to the glass. That's why I watched you so carefully tonight, Michael, and why I made sure every room in this house was under surveillance. Surveillance? Michael's face went from pale to gray. Marcus pulled out his phone and played a video. The library, filmed from a hidden camera. Crystal clear footage of Michael removing a vial from his pocket, looking over his shoulder, and emptying it into a wine glass. Then, filling that glass with the Bordeaux and carrying it to me. Sarah's sob was the worst sound I'd ever heard, worse than any verdict I'd delivered, any sentence I'd imposed. She crumpled in her chair, staring at the video in disbelief. Sarah, it's not what it looks like, Michael started, but she cut him off. Not what it looks like? You poisoned my father's wine. On camera. I can explain. The debts, they're not my fault. Your father has millions. He could have helped us, but he's selfish. Everything was going to be yours anyway. So what's the difference if it happens now or in 10 years? The room erupted, guests shouting, chairs scraping. Marcus and Linda moved in quickly to restrain Michael, who tried to run but was blocked by 2 of my former clerks, both of whom were considerably younger and fitter than he was. The difference, I said quietly, silencing the chaos, is that one is inheritance and the other is murder. And the difference is that Sarah would have had to live the rest of her life knowing her husband killed her father for money. Detective Ramirez read Michael his rights, while Marcus placed him in handcuffs. The other guests, my respected colleagues and friends, looked on in shock. But I kept my eyes on Sarah, watching her world shatter into pieces. I'm so sorry, sweetheart, I said. I'm sorry I couldn't find another way. But I couldn't let him succeed. And I couldn't let you discover this on your own after it was too late to prove it. She couldn't look at me, couldn't look at Michael, just stared at her hands, tears streaming down her face. The police took Michael away. The party dissolved into chaos and then emptiness. My former colleagues left quietly, offering whispered condolences and promises to call later. Marcus stayed to coordinate with the crime scene technicians who came to collect evidence. The poisoned wine glass, carefully bagged and labeled, the surveillance footage, copied and documented, the text messages, already subpoenaed from Michael's phone company. It was after midnight when Sarah finally spoke to me. We were in my study, the same room where I'd watched Michael poison my wine. She sat in Catherine's old chair, the one she'd used when we'd stayed up late discussing cases and philosophizing about justice. Did you know for sure, she asked, that he'd do it tonight? No, I admitted. I suspected. The timing was right. The pressure was mounting. But I didn't know for certain until I saw him do it. What if you'd been wrong? What if you'd humiliated him and us for nothing? Then I would have apologized and meant it. But Sarah, I had the text messages, the financial records, the connection to Dr. Pierce. Even without tonight, I had enough to know your husband was dangerous. She was quiet for a long time. Then, how long have you known? 6 months. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me? I asked gently. 6 months ago, If I'd come to you with suspicions and circumstantial evidence, would you have left him? She didn't answer, which was answer enough. I needed proof, I said. Proof that would hold up in court, and proof that would make you safe. Because if he knew I suspected him, he might have hurt you too. He wouldn't have hurt me, she said, but there was no conviction in it. Maybe not directly. But desperate men do desperate things, Sarah. And he was desperate. She stood up, walked to the window overlooking the estate grounds. I loved him. I really did. I know. How do I trust anyone again? How do I trust my own judgment? You learn, I said. The same way I learned on the bench. You watch, you listen, you verify. And you accept that sometimes people we love are capable of terrible things. The trial came 4 months later. Michael's attorney tried to argue entrapment, claiming I'd deliberately created a situation to force his client's hand. The judge, one of my former colleagues, wasn't buying it. The text to Dr. Pierce predated my retirement announcement by months. The gambling debts were real and documented. The surveillance footage was damning. Dr. Pierce was arrested separately and flipped immediately, testifying that Michael had approached him about handling a family matter. Pierce had provided the compound, a mixture that would cause symptoms mimicking a heart attack in someone my age. Fast-acting, difficult to detect, and usually attributed to natural causes if nobody was looking for it. The jury took 6 hours to convict Michael on charges of attempted murder and conspiracy to commit murder. The judge sentenced him to 25 years in federal prison. Sarah attended the sentencing but sat on the opposite side of the courtroom from Michael's family. She didn't cry, just watched as they led him away in chains. Afterward, I found her in the courthouse hallway, staring out a window at the city below. "It's done," I said. "Is it?" she asked. "Because I still feel like my life ended that night at your party." "No," I said firmly. "Your life didn't end. A chapter ended. A painful one. But you're 32 years old, Sarah. You have so much ahead of you." "Do I?" "Because right now, I can't imagine trusting anyone ever again." "You'll learn to trust again. Carefully. Wisely. But you will." I put my hand on her shoulder. "And I'll be here to help you. That's what fathers do." She leaned into me then, the first time she'd let me comfort her since that night. "I'm so angry at you," she whispered, "for being right, for making me see it, for ruining my marriage." "I didn't ruin your marriage, sweetheart. Michael did that the moment he decided money was worth more than your father's life." She pulled away, wiped her eyes. I know that intellectually, but emotionally, I'm still so angry." "You're allowed to be angry. At him, at me, at the situation. Just don't let that anger consume you. Don't let Michael's betrayal poison the rest of your life the way his vial almost poisoned mine." We stood there together in that courthouse hallway, father and daughter, both damaged by the same terrible truth but still standing. 3 years have passed since that night. Sarah eventually moved to Seattle, took a job with a nonprofit focused on financial literacy education. She wanted to help people avoid the kind of debt traps that destroyed Michael. We talk every week, sometimes about heavy things, sometimes about nothing at all. She's dating again, carefully, someone she met through work, an accountant named David who's patient with her trust issues and doesn't mind that she has her father run a background check. I never did drink that 1,982 Margaux. It's still in my wine cellar, evidence tag and all. Sometimes I think about opening it, celebrating justice served and family protected. But mostly I leave it there as a reminder. Michael writes to Sarah from prison occasionally. She doesn't read the letters. Her therapist says that's healthy, maintaining boundaries with someone who tried to destroy her family. I don't know if she'll ever forgive him. I don't know if she should. As for me, I'm still retired, still living in the estate where it all happened. I had the library renovated. Couldn't stand to sit in there anymore without remembering that night. The dining room, too. Fresh paint, new furniture, different artwork, trying to erase the memory of the worst dinner party in history. But some memories don't erase, like the look on Michael's face when I offered him that poisoned glass. The moment a predator realizes he's been outmaneuvered by prey he thought was helpless. That's the image I carry with me, a reminder of the lesson my father taught me decades ago. The most dangerous people are the ones who smile while they sharpen the knife. But the wisest people are the ones who sharpen their own knives first, quietly, carefully, and strike only when justice demands it. I spent 40 years on the federal bench, upholding the law. But sometimes the law needs help. Sometimes justice requires more than a gavel and a robe. It requires patience, planning, and the willingness to let evil think it's winning right up until the moment it loses everything. Michael thought he was poisoning a doddering old man too senile to see what was coming. What he was actually doing was poisoning his own future, his own freedom, his own life, and he poured that poison with his own hands while I watched, waited, and documented every second. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. I say justice is a wine best left undrunk, sitting in your cellar as evidence that you saw evil coming and you were ready for it. That you protected the people you love, even when it meant breaking their hearts to save their lives. Sarah asked me once if I had any regrets about how I handled it. If I wished I'd confronted Michael privately, given him a chance to leave quietly, avoid the public spectacle and legal consequences. I told her no, because Michael didn't just threaten me. He threatened the sanctity of our family, the trust that holds civilization together, the basic human agreement that we don't murder each other for money. He broke that agreement the moment he contacted Dr. Pierce, the moment he hatched his plan, the moment he chose greed over love. And people who break that agreement don't get second chances. They get caught, tried, and imprisoned. That's not revenge. That's not cruelty. That's justice, pure, necessary, and final. The poisoned wine still sits in my cellar. 3 years later, evidence preserved long after the trial ended. Sometimes visitors ask about it, the glass with the yellow evidence tag. I tell them it's a reminder that the most valuable things in life can't be inherited. They have to be earned. Trust has to be earned. Love has to be earned. Family has to be earned through loyalty and sacrifice, not through marriage certificates and financial opportunity. Michael never earned any of it. He just wore the costume of a son-in-law while plotting patricide for profit. And now he has 22 years left to think about how a single glass of wine cost him everything he pretended to cherish. As for me, I have my daughter back, slowly, carefully. I have my grandchildren, who are too young to understand what happened but old enough to know that Grandpa kept them safe. I have my reputation intact, my conscience clear, and my life, which was the point of all of this. Some nights I sit in my renovated library with a glass of wine from a different bottle, a different vintage, and I think about choices, about the choice I made to investigate rather than confront, to trap rather than trust, to document rather than hope. Were they the right choices? Would a younger man, a less cynical man, have given Michael the benefit of the doubt? Probably. And that younger man would be dead now, victim of his own optimism and Michael's desperation. But I'm not that man anymore. 40 years on the bench taught me that evil is real, that people can smile while plotting murder, and that the only antidote to evil is vigilance combined with decisive action. You don't negotiate with people who poison wine glasses at family dinners. You stop them, permanently, within the bounds of the law, using every tool at your disposal. You stop them cold. And then you live with the aftermath, with your daughter's broken heart, and your grandchildren's confusion, and your own knowledge that you destroyed a man's life to save your own. It's not a comfortable place to be, morally. It's gray and complicated and full of questions without easy answers. But I'm alive. Sarah is safe. Michael is in prison where he belongs. And that poisoned glass of wine in my cellar serves as a daily reminder that sometimes the best defense against betrayal is seeing it coming and being absolutely ready when it arrives. Justice, I learned over 40 years, isn't always pretty, but it's always necessary. And sometimes it looks like an old man at his retirement party, raising a poisoned glass and offering it back to the man who tried to kill him. That's not revenge. That's the system working exactly as it should. Evidence documented. Crime exposed. Justice served. The wine was never about the wine. It was about power, control, and the assumption that an old man couldn't possibly be smart enough to catch a younger predator in the act. Michael was wrong about that. Dead wrong. And now he has 2 decades in federal prison to contemplate exactly how wrong he was. I sleep well at night, better than I did before I knew what Michael was planning. Because uncertainty is worse than confirmed betrayal. At least with betrayal, you know where you stand and what needs to be done. You pick up your phone, you call your FBI contact, you set the trap, and you wait for the predator to take the bait. And when he does, when he pours that poison into your wine glass, thinking he's finally going to inherit your fortune and solve all his problems, you watch, you document, you remember every detail. Because those details are what convict him, what put him away, what protect your family from ever having to face that threat again. That's what I did. That's what any father would do if he had the resources and the knowledge and the understanding of how the legal system works. I used every advantage I had, 40 years of judicial experience and connections, and hard-won wisdom about human nature, and I applied it all to protecting my daughter from the man she married. The irony isn't lost on me. She chose him. She loved him. She trusted him. And I had to destroy that trust to keep her alive. There's no version of this story where everyone wins. Someone was always going to lose. I just made sure it was the person who deserved to lose, not the innocent people he was planning to victimize. 3 years later, looking back on that night with the benefit of hindsight and distance, I'd do it all again exactly the same way. The investigation, the surveillance, the trap at the dinner party. Every single decision was necessary and right. And that glass of poisoned wine sitting in my cellar, preserved as evidence long after it was legally required, stands as proof that when evil comes for your family, you don't run, you don't hide, you don't hope for the best. You set a trap, you document everything, and you watch as the predator poisons himself with his own weapon. That's justice. That's protection. That's what fathers do when the law alone isn't enough to stop the threat. Michael learned that lesson the hard way. I hope anyone else planning similar crimes against their elderly relatives learns it now, before they try, because we're not all helpless. Some of us spent careers in the legal system. Some of us know exactly how to build an airtight case. And some of us are watching, waiting, ready. That glass of wine in my cellar isn't just evidence. It's a message. Try to poison me, and you'll drink it yourself. Try to betray my family, and I'll document every second of your fall. Try to murder me for money, and you'll spend decades in prison contemplating your failure. Justice served. Case closed. Verdict final. And I'm still here, sitting in my renovated library, enjoying wine from bottles I can actually trust, surrounded by the family I protected. That's the happy ending. As complicated and imperfect as it is, we survived. Michael didn't. And that's exactly how it should be.